It's not a hot take in the slightest to say that Need for Speed has struggled for some time now. What was once a major gaming franchise has more recently become nothing more than another generic racing series. However, ever since its reveal, I've been looking forward to the release of Need for Speed Unbound. I would even go as far as to say that I have actually been a little excited to get my hands on it. And now that it is finally here, I've sunk a ton of hours into this game. So let's talk about what I've experienced and if it's finally returned to form for what used to be such an amazing series. Hi, I'm Zach, and this is Amateur Game Review. Quickly before I talk about Need for Speed, I just want to say that if you enjoy this video, find it entertaining in the slightest, or just like the channel at all, then please consider hitting the like button. It lets YouTube know that people want to see this content. Also, if you want to keep up with everything I cover, then you should subscribe and hit the notification bell. We've been growing slowly but surely for some time now, and it's absolutely amazing to be a part of. So with the housekeeping out of the way, there is no need to beat around the bush. Let's just get right into it. This is a huge step back in the right direction for Need for Speed. There's a lot of reasons for this, and don't get me wrong, it's not all positive, but we will get to that. I have a lot in my head that I want to talk about, but let's just go in order and start with the first thing that everyone notices, and that's the art style, because it is a lot different for this. Unbound made a really interesting choice of mashing together photorealistic graphics with anime characters and effects. And I know it won't be for everyone. In fact, it wasn't for me at first, but it grew on me pretty quickly. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of some of the clothing and character designs for your created player. I feel like it's kind of lacking in options and you're basically just stuck with a certain style, but I really enjoyed the rivals you raced against. Well, from a design aspect, that is. It really helped them stand out and be memorable. What really grabbed me about the art style, though, was the effects, which is weird because that's initially what threw me off. The first time you drift through a corner and over-the-top animated smoke comes pouring out from the side of your realistic-looking Charger, you'll probably be a little iffy as well. But the more it happens, the more it became just part of the game and something I actually looked forward to. It's something that gives you another bit of customization with being able to choose what color the smoke is and what type of wings get drawn out of the side of your car when you ramp over a river. To be honest though, I don't know why it was jarring for me to see anime in a game where you can ramp over a river in a streetcar and survive. So obviously it's kind of a pretty good match. But anyway, let's move on to one of the biggest and most important parts of the game, and that's the gameplay. The actual racing feels really, really nice, which I actually expected it to. EA has gone back to Criterion Games being the developer for this entry, and it's one of the reasons why I was genuinely excited to try Unbound. Criterion has worked on the Need for Speed franchise before with Most Wanted and Need for Speed Rivals, and both of those games were pretty good. But for me, what's important is Criterion created the Burnout series, and what I think is one of the greatest arcade racers of all time, Burnout 3 Takedown. But I'm already getting sidetracked, so back to the gameplay, and honestly, it's just simply good. Racing is one of those gaming mechanics that is kind of hard to describe what makes a certain game better than others, because it's really all about feel. It may sound weird, but to me, racing kind of reminds me of a first-person shooter, and how when you're playing a really good one, it just feels natural and you honestly don't even pay attention that much. But if you play an FPS with bad controls, you know it's bad instantly. With Unbound, it feels like the cars handle exactly the way I wanted them to. And that's a really good thing because the gameplay is unforgiving. Winning races is not easy, especially early on in the single-player mode. The game, is kind of designed around this though, and it does reward you for not getting first, but again, we'll get back to that. From a gameplay perspective, the difficulty comes mainly from the AI racers. They're fast, they're relentless, but honestly, they're never unfair. The biggest thing I took away from Unbound is that if I lost, it was usually my fault. I either made a mistake or, in the case of the early game, my car just wasn't capable of winning yet, honestly. Well, there is the occasional time that the police do screw you over and wreck you while you're about to win the race, which is pretty aggravating. Honestly, the police in this game in general, it's not my favorite part. I do not enjoy the cop chases. They are honestly just not that fun, and they're not rewarding, and they are hard to get away from. It does get a little frustrating, especially like in the mid-game when after every race there's a cop chase you've got to get away from just to get to the next race. But as with the rest of the things in this game, the good definitely outweighs the bad there. As far as mechanics go, there is a new feature where, apart from your normal nitrous boost, you have a separate burst meter that you can build by doing different things like drifting, drafting, or getting air. It's a pretty simple mechanic, but it does actually add to the experience quite a bit because I found myself quite often trying to slide through a corner or get close to an oncoming car to get boosts that I would then use to help me win. It became like a challenge within the race to build boosts to try to go faster. The next thing I want to talk about though is the story and the characters because that actually does overlap with gameplay somewhat. The story is very generic. It's your typical revenge storyline, which is fine, and it actually does set up a pretty nice gameplay loop, but its biggest problem is the dialogue. The lines the characters say in this game aren't just corny or cringy, they are outright annoying. You will get a call and they will ramble on, and none of it will add to the game in the slightest, and it's not even the voice actors or anything like that, it's just what they have to say, I guess. But like I said, the story at least sets up a reason for the gameplay and how it all works, so all in all it's fine, but fine is literally the best thing I can say about it. Now, I do want to make a side note on the characters though. The main ones suck, and again this is because of the corny dialogue, but all the little side characters that pretty much have nothing to do with anything are actually really awesome, and it's for an odd reason. See, every race you do is against the same made-up characters, and they all have very distinct cars that set them apart. To top this off, one of the ways that you make money in this game is to make side bets that you will finish ahead of a specific rival, so it becomes a race within a race, like you don't have to get first to still win the side bet. Because of all of this, you end up knowing these side characters really well and will be door to door with them for much of the game. It makes it more intense and personal in a way. I relate it actually to playing a NASCAR game, and every car you pass is a name you know and race against every time you race. So it's a very small addition to the game, but something that made a huge impact in the overall product for me. Unless I lose another race to Harlow, then I may lose it completely and say this game sucks, honestly. But let's move on to what is probably the major last category that I want to talk about, and that's the music of the game. Now, this is completely subjective, as all music really is. This iteration of Need for Speed uses a licensed soundtrack that takes mainly rap and hip-hop songs, and they're pretty new songs. So basically, if you're into rap and hip-hop, this is a pretty good soundtrack. I had no problem with it. I really pretty much enjoyed the soundtrack. There's some really good songs in here, so I had no problem. And don't get me wrong, it's not Need for Speed Underground Little John good, but it's pretty good. And there is quite a bit of songs here to listen to, so it doesn't get very repetitive, and honestly, there's not a lot to say about the music other than, for me personally, it was a positive aspect of the game. I thought it added to it. But there are a lot of aspects of this game that just fall into like a random category, so let's just talk about some things. First, the car list. I actually really enjoyed most of the cars on here, and Need for Speed, it's very odd because one of the reasons to me why it has kind of fallen short in years past is because of the emergence of games like Forza Horizon, for instance, and it cannot compete with the sheer amount of cars that are in that kind of game. So one of the things that it has to do is really lean into kind of the customization aspect, which this one does a better job of. Now, I think that it can still be expanded on, but I really do like at least the visual customization of Need for Speed. I think it's going in the right direction. It really made me feel like kind of how I felt when the first time I played something like Need for Speed Underground, that I could design a car and do with it what I want. Now, obviously, it's ridiculous to say, but we always want more. I did feel like I wanted some more customization options with some of the cars that were there. Like, sometimes it would be like, oh, what kind of headlights do you want to put on it? And then you click on it and there are no other options. It's literally just the stock headlights. That was kind of aggravating, but for the most part, there was still a good amount of cars, and those cars could really be customized any way you wanted to. And they all felt and acted differently, which is super nice. But before we wrap up, I do want to talk about some of the things that really just wasn't great about the game. First off, I did mention the police chases. Like, I want to just mention it again because those really were aggravating. It wasn't so much the actual chases, just the amount of times that you had to do it. The other thing is the rewards for the game, and I said I would get back to this. I have never played a racing game that felt as grindy as this. It really feels like you have to do races over and over and over again to make enough money to really do anything. I have sunk a ton of hours into this game, like I said, and it took forever before I could even afford to upgrade my car to compete and then get another car so that I could be in multiple categories at once. And it didn't stop there. It costs so much money to upgrade your car, and you're only winning between like $2,000 and $5,000 for a long time. And then even after that, if you get away from the highest police chase that you can get away from, you're still not making very much money for that. It's all just kind of wasted time. Now, luckily, like I said, the game is really fun and the racing is really fun, so the grinding doesn't feel as bad, but if it wasn't for how good the game felt, I wouldn't have been able to get through some of this. And in all honesty, the rewards just aren't worth how long some of these races are or how hard they are. But that's basically all I have. I am going off the top of my head here, so I am sure I forgot some stuff. But yeah, let's just wrap it up. Need for Speed for me, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. This was a really good game. Like I said, it is a step in the right direction for Need for Speed, and it's a really fun racing game, and if you are into this kind of thing, you should absolutely get it. Now, I already did my spiel about, subscribe and like and everything, so I won't hit you guys with that again. But I do want to say thank you guys. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you, and I love making these videos, and I love interacting with you guys. And if you do have any suggestions on videos you would like to see me play, what games you want me to review or anything like that, do let me know down in the comments below. You can always follow me on Instagram, Twitter. I think that's all I have. Maybe a TikTok, but yeah, that's all for me, and I will see you guys in the next video.